Good evening and welcome to a very exciting episode of the exclusive leadership webinar series, hosted and conceptualized by Vivekananda Global University. Now, why very interesting? As the guest for the day is very interesting today. Are you one of those who are keen followers of sci-fi? Have you been interested in Tesla and SpaceX updates? If yes, then today's show definitely have something for you to watch out. Yes, I'm talking about the chairman and CEO of Ultra PRT, one of the global leaders in the autonomous electricity mobility. Can we please welcome Mr. Ranbir Saran on the virtual platform of Vivekananda Global University? Welcome, sir.
Hi, namaskar to all the students and faculty of the university and everybody else who's watching. I am going to speak in English. मैं हिंदी बहुत अच्छी तरह से जानता हूँ, but I'm going to speak in English because some people might not be able to follow me. So back to the talk. Yes, so I'm here. Go ahead, Nitin.
Right. Thank you, and welcome, sir. So, today I'm going a little indifferent because, generally I opt out giving the intro of the expert who's there with us on the screen. But you have had a 4-decade-long journey and at a very diversified journey. Globally, you have been at key positions in multiple domains, from handling the world's largest agri project to, your contribution in agriculture and then technology and mobility. It's very diversified. So it would not be justified if I talk about that in my behalf. May I please request you to talk about those 4-decade-long experience? How have the journey been? Please, sir.
Okay, so it's a long story, Nitin. I had my career in 1972, at the end of 1972, and I think I was one of the first people to use a computer in those days. But you know what a computer looked like? It was like as big as a 7-8 bedroom house. It was called the IBM 1401, and that was the latest thing in those days. So I am as ancient as that. However, that's how I started my career. After that, I have done so many things in 25 countries of the world. My basic expertise is projectization of technology, execution of technology. And so that's what I've been doing in various fields. Yes, agriculture and food business has been one of my favorite areas, and I believe that your university has a very major agriculture division. And in fact, a good friend of mine is a professor there, Mr. Motwani, who has been kind enough, in fact, to invite me here. So yes, Mr. Motwani and I've done about 22 or 23 major agri or food project, agribusiness projects. And we started in the rainforests of Africa, one of the largest agriculture farms, contoured agriculture farms in the world. This was 25,000 acres, which is equal to 100 square kilometers. We sort of built 406 kilometers of roads, built 26 bridges on the farm. And so, yes, we were the first, I believe, in Africa to set up a tissue culture laboratory in those days. I'm talking way back many decades ago. Agriculture has been one of my favorite areas as well. Water is another passion of mine. I am very, very passionate about the entire water resources and how to distribute water, clean water. Ambition is to create projects where people can drink water from any tap, not have to set up RO systems or whatever it is. Waste to energy has been a major area. I've also been involved in the design of new cities. One of the cities that I have done as team leader was the Gift City in Gujarat, which is India's first example city and won the Best Design City Award in the world. I've done 22 cities in Vietnam, in India, in Georgia, a couple of other places in Africa as well. What else? I am also a very passionate green guy. I'm a passionate environmentalist, so anything that is to do with green technology or improvement of the environment. I, for example, don't cut trees anymore. So yes, so that's what I've done. It's been a very interesting and a um, very varied career involved in multiple technologies, Nitin.
Right. So we would definitely love to talk, more in details about this agriculture project which you were talking about, if in case we find time. But as today we are talking about the global mobility issue. So due to this pandemic, post-health, the second most affected column is mobility. Mobility have definitely come down to a standstill. And in the new norms of normal, it's going to be even more difficult. When we have the compliance of maintaining a public distance, a limitation to onboard any public utility transport, this is definitely a question in everyone's mind. You being an expert of the business, let me take your inputs on this, how things would be, sir.
Right. So we started looking at mobility. I mean, the company that I now run started looking at this mobility in 1995. The person who started this company, from whom I took over, was basically one of the senior people in the Apollo space program at NASA. And when he retired, he came back to the UK, which is where he belonged. And with the first grant of the UK government, he started to think about urban problems and traffic problems and road casualties and the environment. And so basically, I think we were one of the first people in the world to start looking at sustainable electric autonomous mobility. We have researched this and worked on this. And basically, I think it was in 2007 or 2008, we got our first contract in the world to build the first PRT system in London. This is now operating. It got commissioned in 2011, and we've carried 6 million people plus on this, which is, in my opinion, the world's largest track record of autonomous electric mobility, albeit on a segregated track, because we do not believe in putting cars on the street and compete with bad drivers for road space and so on. And also the capacity of a segregated track is much, much, much higher because there are no traffic lights, etc., and no other traffic to contend with. So it's a non-stop journey from start to end. This is what we felt was the solution many, many years ago. And I think our first project that was actually commissioned in 2011 was the first one such project, and it has been the largest. There are many, 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 many companies that have actually followed us. There are about 30 or 40 companies that are trying to get into the same space. So we were the first movers and fortunately the largest in the world at the moment as far as this mobility is concerned.
Wow, so I mean that's indeed very interesting to know that we are in conversation with someone who is the pioneer of this new age mobility, and the organization which you head on to is absolutely out there in the role to create the history in the making, because we see a very new and a different mode of transportation altogether. To understand more on the detailed side of that, I also have a couple of slides. I'm sure those will definitely help the viewers to get into the better understanding of the concept. Besides, alongside, if I can first request you to talk about the entire technology disruption because of this COVID situation, and then if we head on to understanding more of the mobility part of the story.
Right, great. This is a favorite topic of mine that I love to speak to universities and students as well, because these are young minds who are embracing technology much, much more faster than old people like us. But let me just go back a little bit in history. Long time in history. The first so-called industrial revolution that happened in the late 1800s and first decade of the 1900s was caused because of 5 technologies came together at once: oil, steel, electricity, the car, and so on. There were 5 great technologies that happened all of a sudden within 30, 40 years. This is what propelled the entire first industrial revolution. And it enabled us to travel, it enabled the oil fed the cars, and the cars became mass produced, and so on. This was a moment in time, an inflection moment in creation and innovation at that time. I think the second thing that happened was when the first computing started and the software industry picked up and the internet came. This was the second great innovation time where a lot of new industries came up and e-commerce came up and so many other things came up because of the second wave of technology. We are now in the phase of the third technology. So you have, which are things like amazing technologies are being developed, like artificial intelligence, electric mobility, energy storage, which is, by the way, the largest expenditure at the moment is going into energy storage. Genomics, biotech, robotics, big data, quantum computing, quantum physics, material science, and things like regenerative medicine. So we have this whole ecosystem that is there for this new technology that is happening, which is disrupting a lot of industries of the past, recent past, and it is creating new industry by fusion of technology. So I wish I was 20 years old at this time, so I could take advantage of innovation that young people of today have by fusion of these technologies and creating something beyond your own field. I'm of the opinion of the fact that you need to not only concentrate on digitization, you need to concentrate on digitization with the bricks. You need to have a fusion of both into the physical space to create a long-term business plan. Otherwise, it becomes obsolete very fast, and the disruption that happens, and some people get left behind. So this is a belief of mine. The technology is innate. You have to be looking out of your groove. If you're a computer specialist, you need to be looking at what applications you can put in the agriculture field. If you're an architect, you can look at biotechnology and fuse with new materials. This is a great opportunity. I think fusion is leading to disruption, and this is a great time for fusion. As I said, I wish I was much younger.
Right, sir. I mean, very correctly have you touched upon the point that, the tech is not going to go obsolete. It's just that, the innovation and the fusion, and we need to embrace the change that's coming in forward. That's a very important message for all these students out there. We would be taking more on the input side, specifically, a short address for all these students. But now, sir, with your due permission, let's head on to the topic we are talking for the day. And if you allow me, should I share on the screen?
Yes, please do that. That would be great.
Absolutely, sir. Because it's a very interesting topic that we are talking in today. If that's visible, sir.
No, the screen is not visible, but is it visible to everybody else?
Is it visible to you now?
No. No. Is it visible to you? I can talk about it if you.
Yes, it's visible to me. It looks
right. Now it is visible. Yeah. Great. So, do you want me to start?
Please, sir.
Okay, so let's go to the first slide. This is what the future vision of mobility is, which means that it is a bowl of noodles, because it is so confused. It is so confused. There are so many people trying to do so many things, and there is vast areas that they need to work on, and it is evolving. There is some of the biggest names are involved in this, from the largest auto companies to the largest IT companies to the largest technology companies to the largest oil companies. They're all involved in this space. This is the greatest opportunity in human history ever. This is a $7 trillion opportunity that is bigger than anything we've had. And it is, if you like to compare it, this opportunity is almost 3 times the GDP of India. It is 60% of the GDP of China. So this is the greatest opportunity. And therefore, it is attracting a huge amount of interest. Plus, it is the need of the hour. Post-pandemic is going to change the game. At the moment, we are at a stage, if you look at the slide, and it says the messy middle on the top row. So everybody's been thinking about this actually solution, but the messy middle is, at the moment, the chicken or the egg story. Are you expecting electric vehicles to come up without somebody putting up the charging systems, and vice versa? Who will invest in the charging systems if electric vehicles are not there? People are looking at new fuels. People are looking at connected, autonomous mobility with technology. People are looking at what regulations the government will bring in. People are looking at the environmental impact and so on and so forth. People are looking at for two-wheelers and three-wheelers, for cars, for buses, for trucks, for trains and planes, for private ownership and for fleet ownership, because everything has a different plan, business plan. So at the moment, this is really a fairly confused space. This is a little bit like when the computing industry started laptops, and there were 30, 40 companies that came up. There were no standards. There was no uniform approach. This is what is happening in the field of mobility. Great. So can we go on to the next one? This is the dollar noodles. It is as confused as this. This is just to amplify my point of the last slide. Right. So here is the what I call the anxiety of mobility. You have on the left-hand side a dozen lanes of a road, and still you have to wait for 2-3 hours in traffic jam. And on the right-hand side, you have multiple types of users that actually create chaos. And this is not just India. On the right side is India. On the left side is other parts of the world. This is happening all over Asia and in the West as well. I call this the anxiety of mobility, which basically means that you have to plan 2 days in advance or 1 day in advance if you have an important meeting of how you're going to get there. And even then, you arrive either too early or too late. Yeah, let's move on. So this is the kind of chaos that happens when you allow multiple users on the same road. It is, there is no way. I'll give you a small example. Those of you who know Delhi, you know the Noida toll bridge road is as wide as the old Delhi railway station road, but the speeds are completely different on the two. This is primarily because on the toll bridge, you have a limited number of types of users, and on the other one, you have 35 types of users. So this is the chaos that is caused on the streets, which has to be looked at immediately. Yeah, so this is one of my favorite cartoons from the 80s by the famous R.K. Lakshman. And the common man is saying, of course I have a car, but I don't have a road to drive it on. You cannot build roads, more roads. You cannot widen roads, and you cannot build more flyovers. I like to compare this with obesity. I mean, if you're getting obese and you loosen your belt a little bit, that's not solving the problem. So building a flyover is like that. You just have a limited amount of belt loosening that you can do. Okay, let's go on. This is what you use your car for about 2 hours a day. Most of that time, it is stuck in traffic to get to your location. And actually, This is used about 95% of the time in productive use. If you are in any industry or if you're in any activity, if you have a 95% unused, non-use of your asset, you are ripe for disruption. This is the reason why this is very land intensive, it is very capital intensive, and it is a very low use ownership of an asset. Let's move on. This is the other enduring image. This is an Indian city. I would not like to take the name of the city, but quite a lot of cities look like this. And I think I saw somewhere a few weeks ago, before the pandemic, that out of the 10 most polluted cities in the world, 7 are in our country. This, of course, leads to a lot of problems, which is here. The crowd, we kill 412 people every day in India, of which 47 are children. And this does not take into account the injuries and the other health problems that are created. As far as the pollution is, no, by the way, this 412 is equal to all fatalities worldwide from all the wars, terrorism, natural disasters, murders, and other law and order issues all over the world. We kill more people in India every single day than all of the world put together does in all of these things. And I believe there is a number that has been worked out by somebody that every year in India we lose 6.5 million people to the pollution-related issues, illnesses. So this is a huge number. This is not only the casualties, but this is also the economic loss and the loss of productivity that we suffer as a result of not being able to solve our traffic problems and the transit and the environment problems. I think let's move on, please. So let's talk about the pandemic. We are here in the middle of a pandemic, and there's no idea when it's going to end. We will not have a vaccine until the end of this year or maybe early next year. If it is available for all of us to be able to get access to that vaccine, it's going to take a few months more. Are we not going to travel in the meantime? How are we going to travel? Are we going to get back onto crowded public transport with the virus? This is really, I call this situation like a petri dish of viruses. You have to protect yourself. What happens now? Let's go. This is in India. This is how people crowd into trains and metros in India. But this is not only in India, this is all over the world. If you go to the next slide, I'll show you a slide from Japan. This is what happens in Japan, maybe even more crowded during the office hours than India. Now you can look at the faces that are so close to each other. You will not be able to protect yourself at all in this kind of situation. So this is an issue that has to be solved. It is global, it is not only India. One. The result of that, in only 24 days between late Feb and I think it was early 11th April, not 24, maybe about a month and a half. Look at the decline of people visiting stations. A lot of this period was before the lockdown. In the US, certainly. And in India, about halfway, 60-70% of this line was without lockdown. But just see what is the reduction of people visiting stations, bus stands or stations. This is the data that has come from Google very recently. So already people are, even if the even if the transit systems are working, people are very, very nervous of exposing themselves. This is voluntary in the first part of these lines before the law. Let's go on. Now, there are some solutions that are being thought of, like empty seats in public transport, in restaurants, no standing, and so on. The impact of this will be that the capacity of every metro train, of every bus, will go down dramatically. You will be able to carry, for example, in a bus, if it carries normally 50, 70 people, plus about 8 or 10 standing, you will be able to carry only about 18, 20 people. Where is the viability of this kind of system? Where is the disinfection of all this that will happen? So this is, public transport will not be able to survive in the current, maybe the ticket price or return on investment and so on, until there is a radical solution that is found. Huge amounts of money has been invested in public transport and is being invested. But this has to be seen. How do you pay back that investment? And it will not be with this image that you see of very limited capacity. So we have in India, this is a golden opportunity, as people say. There is, every crisis brings an opportunity. It forces change. And this is the greatest opportunity we have in mobility at the moment, is to forget the investments that we have been making and move to the next class mobility, which will last us for about 30, 40 years and outlast the nervousness and the social changes that people are going to have, and the demand from environmentalists and longevity in line with government regulations and so on. So this is the opportunity to leapfrog. India is only 20% built. We have 80% more to be built. This cannot happen in the West so easily, because the West has got the legacy of vested interest in infrastructure, in the oil industry, in the car industry, in the road industry. So we have this opportunity because we can leapfrog this, rather this evolutionary stage. We can go and miss a few steps in that evolutionary stage and go to the newest technology. This is what Mr. Modi said at the end of 2018. Mobility is like the internet in its early days. It is the next big innovation sector. This is his own statements. I was there in the audience when he said this in Vigyan Bhavan. His vision is on 7 Cs: common, connected, convenient, congestion-free, charged, clean, and cutting edge. It is a great vision, absolutely great vision. And we, that is Ultra, we are all of the 7 Cs that he was talking about. Move on. So now let me talk about what is happening, what are the trends, the global trends in the mobility industry. You've all heard of the Ubers and the Olas and the Lyfts and other companies, the Didi in China, the Lyft in America, Ola here, Uber all over. So on-demand ride share, what does it mean? Tap a button and get a ride. Always on, always available. Buy a ride, not a car. This is leading to a tremendous fall in ownership of cars. And this is what is going to impact the auto industry very dramatically. I'll just say one statement, one quote from the managing director of Daimler-Benz, who in 2017 predicted that all car companies are going to go bankrupt unless they change dramatically. So on-demand ride-sharing is going to lead to a major disruption in the auto industry. The second is electrification. We've heard a lot about electrification because of the environment, the pressures on city pollution, and but what you need is a lot of new research and a new development on things like better battery technology, shorter charging times, who's going to build the infrastructure, and so on. before this becomes a reality. Now, the third and the most advanced of all this, autonomous vehicle. What does autonomous mean? Autonomous means that you do not need your hands or your eyes. The car takes you where you want to go without any involvement from your side. This is where every single car company, from the Mercedes to the Volvos to the Toyotas to Tesla. Uh, by the way, Tesla is going to step pretty quickly, but Tesla is nowhere near total autonomy at the moment. We have been there for the last 9 years already. And so we have all of these three elements that is the new trends, the global trends at the moment in the world. Let's go on. So here you have what is happening in the industry at the moment. The global population is increasing and the rise of Asia is happening. So the market is shifting majorly to Asia. You have urbanization and smart cities that are coming up. You have on-demand retail, which is e-commerce, and you have major city pollution and global warming. Now, if you look at the last four circles on the other side, the $7 trillion opportunity that I spoke about is going to go into the autonomous, the shared vehicles, the connected vehicles, and electric vehicles. This is where all this big money is being spent at the moment by major corporations all over the world. Let's go on. This is us. This is what it looks like. It is very beautiful and it has brains. This decides where you want to go, you decide where you want to go, and this will take you there. This is a no-touch system, and it is on segregated track, so there's no traffic, there's no waiting, there's no red lights, there's no zebra crossings, there's no roundabouts. This is what it looks like outside and inside. It is personal, it is private, it can be shared, air-conditioned and comfortable. It has a video screen and it has CCTV camera. Plus, we will provide entertainment inside, VR and AVR and any sort of entertainment and browsing. What would you like to do when you're in a vehicle, when you're not using your eyes or your hands? You'd like to sleep, you'd like to read, you'd like to eat, you'd like to play games and so on. It enables you to do that, and your journey time is much faster than in any other transport, because I would like to point out that on all our roads, the average speed of travel is between maybe 12 to 18 kilometers per hour. Here you'll move at about 60 kilometers per hour across the city without stopping. So a much greater ease and comfort, predictability, and so on. This car will be available to you in less than 10 seconds. It can go inside buildings, it has no noise, it has no pollution. This is the picture in London. This is an actual photograph of people going into our cars, and there's a console outside that you see. They just select their destination on the console. They can also do that on a phone. And the car door opens and it'll take you there. It's as simple as that. It's no touch, no conflict, no pain, no aggravation whatsoever. As I said, you can schedule a car on your phone, and you can schedule the journey on your phone. Once you get into the car knows because it's already been scheduled. And here maybe it is from Dwarka to Karol Bagh in Delhi. It'll take you 13 minutes, and that's it, and no Delhi traffic whatsoever. This is a very convenient system. Now let's talk about the energy and the environment. There is a line that you see, and all the other transports are listed here as to what is the energy that they use in megajoules per passenger kilometer. You will see that we use less energy than everything else. The only way you can use less energy than us is to walk on the side. And just imagine the much less, not much less, no pollution is caused by our system, and the energy use is the least of any other transport. Okay, let's move on. Can anybody guess what city this is? Just type the name of the city and I'll get back to this. This is the kind of problem that you have not in one city, but in many, many cities in the world. And this is how you would approach a crowded city with our system on top. Just bypass everything and reach your destination very, very fast. It's very easy to put this in a city because you can see the columns are very, very low, very thin, and like lampposts. You can build maybe 2-3 kilometers a month rather than the heavy construction that happens in other transit systems. This is what happens in a congested city. I mean, I have many, many images from around the world. This is just one that I thought that might be illustrative of how we can tackle a lot of our urban problems. Yes, just a small example of people going to work, getting stuck in traffic. And if you have the top system on top, which is indicated here, which is PRT, the aggravation is eliminated, the productivity is improved, and the environment is improved as well. So multiple advantages in this. Let's go on. Do we have the next slide? Yes. Now, this is something that is very, very important, because if people can travel safely, I've titled this as women's safety, but it can be anybody's safety. There's law and order problems that happen on public transit, eve teasing happens, and so on. If this happens inside the car, this is a personal car, so typically it'll be a group of friends or a family. But even if that happens, there is an immediate monitoring of this by the controller in the control room, and he can use an override to take the car directly into a police station, and the door will open at the police station. So there will be that element of safety to prevent crime in public transport and harassment of ladies in public transport. Let's move on. Medevac and the golden hour. There are so many people who die because they can't get to hospital on time. These cars can be used as autonomous ambulances, and they'll go into an emergency room in a hospital. You can see lower down an ambulance stuck in traffic. How many times have you seen this happen? The amount of lives that it will save if you can reach the patient in time into a hospital. This can be done by this car as well. Let's go on. Safe journey to school. How many parents drive or pay for school buses to reach their children to school? We've had accidents of school buses and injuries to kids. The parent will just have to put the children into the car. It'll go into school and open inside the school. There is no safer way. It'll remove school buses off the street. There's no safer way for children to travel from home to school and back. And the last mile. It can be connected to any transport. It can be connected to bus stations. It can be connected to metro stations. And from there, the last mile can be distributed to schools and residences and offices and malls. And this will be much faster. It'll be all weather. And it'll be inside to inside, which means you don't have to be exposed to harsh climate. The pandemic, the pandemic has set the reset button, the reboot button, I'm sorry. And therefore, if you are in this car, you are monitored for body temperature. It can be measured without any device being applied to you. A panic button for medical emergencies can be pressed, and the controller will come on an audio system. There is a CCTV camera, so he will be able to view your condition. And then there's a rapid override. What does this mean for governments? And it's a rapid response. social distancing is maintained, and you go from home to work without fear or home to school without fear. This is the only thing that will enable social distancing in movement from now on. Let's move on. So what do we need? We need regulation and standards for safe travel environment. The government has to play a major role in this. The first thing that can happen, which may not even happen on autonomous cars, is zero emission cars. At least that a target can be set. Most countries have set targets on this. It is not Euro 4 or Euro 6 or that. I'm talking about a target a date when all vehicles on road are zero emission. We have to learn how to manage crowds. I have been so distressed by watching what has been happening to migrant laborers in cities and on the road. We just need to have a much better system of handling concentration of travelers and managing crowds. There are so many simple ways of doing it, and we need to put that into a standard operating procedures or infrastructure created accordingly. Increasing traceability and transparency by sharing data. I think the government has made a fairly good start with this Arogya Setu app, but a lot more needs to be done. Contactless movement through autonomous vehicle. You don't even need to touch a wheel or a button or a door or anything like that. You can book something on your phone and you don't have to touch anything. You don't have to be with a driver who may be sick. And this is what I mean by contactless movement through autonomous vehicle. Tracking people with facial recognition and big data. I know this is a little controversial. This is happening majorly in China. If it's of interest to some of you, there is a CCTV camera for every 7 citizens in China with facial recognition. Now, yes, privacy is lost, but we need not go that far. But facial recognition and use of big data to prevent infections and spread. Technology-supported mass temperature monitoring. Now, in quite a few airports in the world, you don't have to have this temperature gun aimed at you. There's just a gate you walk through, and a lot of people are able to be detected with high temperature. And of course, the last one is adoption of new mobility solution, which is available now. I think this is what is needed at this point in time for investment in these things so that the future is safer. Let's move on. So this is what our plan is to spread this across India, and there's 121 cities that we have made plans for. CapEx is about a third or a fourth or a fifth or a tenth of what the other alternatives are. We will reduce over 7% of the total carbon emissions of all the transport in India. Your environment in all the cities will improve, and we will, if all this is done in the tier 1 and tier 2 cities, we will be able to actually carry 5% of India's population or 15% of urban population at a fraction of the cost. And by the way, these systems are much less capital intensive. You could actually, as far as the ticket price is concerned, it would be comparable to a metro ticket or a bus ticket. This is not an elite system. This is absolutely comparable with metro and bus systems. I see somebody saying, yes, using less energy is a step to reducing greenhouse gases. Absolutely. Absolutely. And greenhouse gases, you have to reduce for the future of our world. Let's go on. What is the impact? This will create jobs for 1.5 crore people in India, which is equal to the total in industry jobs and construction jobs combined. If this is done in only tier 1 and tier 2 cities, this is a huge wealth creation. It will lead to making 15 lakh electric cars in India for just this purpose. And with the reduction in energy use and the increase in productivity and the jobs it will create, this will increase, in our opinion, the India's GDP by at least 2%. This is the need of the hour. It is not going to happen immediately, but the steps have to be started as soon as we can. Let's move on. So this is not from any source. This is my personal thought process. Urban vehicle usage is evolving. In the past, there was personal vehicles, which is two-wheeler, or four-wheeler, and you had the taxi. I'm not talking about the public transport here. I'm talking about urban vehicle use, which is excluding public transport. This is what used to happen in the past. Currently, the use of taxis has gone down. Car sharing has increased both in your ride-sharing companies and the personal vehicle also to some extent. On-demand rides has also come in, and personal vehicle is coming, and the use of personal vehicle is likely to come down in the future. And this is different for different countries in the world. In India, it might come a little later, but in Japan and in South Korea, it's going to happen much, much faster. So basically, urban vehicles will consist of only two things. Autonomous vehicle, which is, and if you can see the words below that, MaaS, M-A-S, which is mobility as a service. So people are, auto companies, oil companies are moving towards mobility as a service rather than car ownership or buying fuel, etc., etc. And of course, the people who want to own the Rolls Royces and Lamborghinis and stuff like that, the fancy cars will still continue to buy personal vehicles, but it will be much, much less. So this contraction of urban vehicle usage on city roads is going to free up a lot of road capacity. It is going to lower the emissions, the carbon emissions, and it'll also lower the city pollution. This is where I see the world is going in urban vehicle usage. Let's move on. Yeah, so this is my favorite slide. This mobility on the left, which is the engine, the railway, completely changed the 19th century. It enabled people to move, and industry flourished, and it expanded all over the world. I don't think there's any country without railways in the world at the moment. And what's going to change the 21st century is on the right. And in the middle, there was something called the car, which I think messed us up quite badly. It creates, I'm sorry. It was very useful at the start, but it just got out of control. We build cities only for cars, not for people. So I see this vehicle on the right being the 21st century. That's it. Nitin, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about now.
Right, so it was, a very engrossing presentation, though. Technically, it absolutely looks like a very futuristic thing, though. But of course, this is an execution in a couple of countries. Specifically, we've started this. Ultra PRT had started this in United Kingdom. So, sir, here my first question, and that's what I've been getting in the comment box as well on the multiple live platforms. You've talked about, you've quoted, in fact, the Honorable Prime Minister of the country talking about the same in the year 2018, that the future, the mobility would be as, evolving as internet was. So we are just in the phase of starting that. metro, when that came to execution, so it's an interconnected set of questions basically. So metro, when it came to execution, and now when we are talking about this PRT mobility, one thing is that how are these two different, and what is the possibility of getting in this? Because one side you're saying that India is 20% built, so there is of course a lot of space for the construction which goes behind getting this PRT concept on, on the block. This is one thing. And secondly, how is it actually, because when we talk of any of the metros of the country, the most important, or the major challenge is the congestion on the roads. Of course, the traffic is one of the most important and one of the most problematic segment, and the other one is the pollution. So how is this concept of mobility gonna battle both these most important and the challenging aspects as well?
Right. So you asked a few questions in that one question, and I will attempt to answer all of them. Right. Basically, we do not, we like all transport forms as long as they're sustainable. Every city has a hierarchy of transport. There is no single transport that meets the demand of entirely of the city. So there will be metros, there will be buses, there will be cars, and there will be PRTs. Idea is to have them integrated with a seamless transport linkage so that you are able to have a seamless travel from your origin to your destination. And this may mean that you may have a uniform ticketing, you may have multimodal station exchanges, and so on and so forth. So all transport can coexist with each other and very well. Only that, we have done some research. For example, Ahmedabad is one of the more advanced transport cities in India. They have a BRT that works very well. They have MRT. They have buses. We did a study that if you were able to overlay our system on that city, not only will it improve walkability in Ahmedabad, but it will also increase the metro ridership by 29%. Because then people will have a last mile and a first mile connectivity. And then more people will use the metro in conjunction with the PRT. This is my point, that we are able to supplement each other rather than compete. The core point that you mentioned was about road congestion and about pollution. If we have public transport, and I'm not saying anything new that people for 50 years have not said so, the use of personal transit is harmful for traffic, for casualties, for pollution, for the environment. More use of public transport is needed. Every chief minister of every state, every place in India looks for more public transport, but they cost money. And we're not able to keep up with the speed of development of public transport. And that is why people are buying more cars. There are cities in India that buy more than 1,000 cars every single day. But they're not building the roads or the infrastructure to suit that increased population of cars. And this leads to conflict. This leads to... can I interrupt with one point over here and just digress a little bit? One of my heroes in the world is a guy called Michio Kaku. He is a fourth generation Japanese professor who teaches future studies in Harvard Business School. He's one of our heroes. And he says the only way you can succeed in any enterprise that you do is to remove pain, aggravation, and irritation from people's lives. That's the only way you can succeed. Whatever your business model, whatever is your area. So if you're able to have seamless travel from one place to the other, predictable travel, comfortable travel, it will inevitably succeed. And this need not be only PRT. It can be, but it need not only be PRT, but PRT with buses, with metros, and with other transit as well. Was there any other question you asked me in that point, or have I covered them all?
Absolutely, sir. You've covered them all, and how rightfully have you touched upon the professor from Harvard, the Japanese professor from Harvard, talking about that innovation definitely need to have the
Yeah.
consumer sentiments, the consumer ease as the pivot of the whole idea, and that's what exactly we are talking about, and PRT would be doing in the future. So, also, of course, this is in the continuation of
Yes.
what we've just talked about. Any kind of technology, when it comes in, it takes a lot many years, and of course a lot of things goes in the background to get that on the implementation part and to get that on the practical side of the frame. uh, in India, I mean, if you're acceptable towards me talking about this, in India, how do you see this coming in? 4 years from here, 8 years from here, or is it more than that from here? Because the need is absolutely much. As in the post, you have talked about the coexistence of all the forms of mobility. Indeed, that is very important. But then the public transport is the one which is gonna, I mean, which is much helpful when it comes to the. We've talked about the fatalities as well. So public transport may reduce that, and the personal transport leads to more of the fatalities and the casualties. So to avoid all of that and to keep in norms with the social distancing, this is the need of the. How soon is it coming in the picture?
Okay, I am not at liberty to disclose the name of the city, but it is going to happen in 2 or 3 cities this year in terms of the procurement of the system. One of them has already gone to the media and announced it last week. So it is happening. We are finding every technology needs an inflection moment to succeed. This is, in my view, the inflection moment for mobility in urban areas because it has brought to the fore the major problems that exist in our urban environment. And I am finding that in this 2.5 months of this lockdown, I'm at home, as you can see, I work from home. In 2.5 months, we've had most cities on their own inquiring about the system rather than we going to them. And this is happening from all over the world. So I see this as a forcing of the realization of change on the part of managers of cities and urban environment.
Right. So if you're taking this as the point of inflection, right? If you're taking this as the point of inflection, let's also talk about the aspect of employment that is to be generated in the coming times. Of course, because of this pandemic, all the industries being hard at, the business have come down to a halt. There's certainly a recession to follow, and the challenges would be soaring up when it comes to employment as well. It's going to be one of a question mark for all the new graduates coming out of the school. We are in academia. All these students, hundreds and thousands of students are I mean, in the audiences to you currently. What's your note to them when this is the point of inflection of this new age mobility? Is there a lot of employment opportunity also to be created, and how do they need to prepare and for that?
Oh, there is a huge, huge amount of employment opportunity to be created in this whole domain of mobility. As I said, there is a huge amount of work which is happening in things like energy storage, new fuels, in autonomous writing of code for autonomous vehicles, and so on and so on and so on. This is going to disrupt so many industries. It is going to disrupt the oil industry. It's going to disrupt the auto industry. It's going to disrupt the insurance industry, the auto finance industry, the entertainment industry, and so many other things. Every time any industry is disrupted, and I'm talking here about the mobility industry being disrupted, it creates new industries in its wake if it is moving this fast. And we can have another talk on this, but there is a huge amount of opportunity that's going to happen here, even for big data, for example. I mean, if you have about 100,000 people or 200,000 people in your vehicles on any day in any city, there is so much data that you can share with them, and augmented reality, virtual reality, entertainment, infotainment. There's so many things. And it's all being alternate fuels, as I mentioned. Is it going to be lithium-ion batteries? Is it going to be hydrogen fuel cells? And so on. So I would advise a little bit of advice to your students in your university, and generally speaking as well. Look for technologies that you can apply to the physical world, right? Because
Right.
that is what is going to create longevity. You do not need a technology that is going to evaporate in 1 or 2 years because somebody else has come up with it. Same thing and better. So, and this is happening all the time. So, check with the physical link, which improves quality of life for people. And there are massive, massive opportunities in this, and I mean, endless opportunities.
Right, definitely. Right, definitely. So the students should be focusing on all those pilot technologies which are the driving force of the entire humanity and, of course, the mankind. So, because you have been, I mean, nothing less than a professor. There is no institute across the globe, may it be the MITs to IITs to IIMs to Harvards. You have been amongst these students and you have been sharing all this optimism, may it be about anything on this earth. This is the most challenging time after this wonderful talk, and in the end talking about that there is a lot in the employment as well. And of course you've touched upon that what do they need to imbibe in terms of technology. Last words that students don't need to feel panic about, and what is in the future, and the last words of optimism from your side before we wind up the conversation.
Okay, so there is a thing called lifelong learning. And after you've done this, after you've done the degree that you're doing over here, keep on learning. Keep on learning, because the world is changing so fast. And if you have flexibility, and if you have knowledge beyond what is the curriculum that you're following, which is critical, because then you are able to be fleet-footed and change fast. There are many people who stick to their own narrow trench and are not able to contribute so much. So my last words to the students is be flexible, be fleet-footed, look beyond your trench that you're in, and you will not go wrong.
Right. Keep moving and be flexible. This is the last words of optimism for all these student viewers out there. What a session it had been, and almost in the limited time frame, we have touched upon multiple aspects of the world of future, how things are going to change in future, may it be from mobility to the other technological aspects as well. Now, can I please request the Honorable President of Vivekananda Global University, who's here with us in this conversation, to please come on the screen and summarize the entire conversation, and also to put across a formal vote of thanks to the guest of honor for the day, Mr. Ranbir Saran. Professor P.M. Udani ji.
It was a very interesting talk by Ranbir Saab. I am sitting in Ahmedabad. You are at different place. Nitin is also in Jaipur. And this pandemic has created certain advantage also by meeting digitally with each other. I was listening keenly to your talk, and you described the model of Ahmedabad BRTS is very successful. Even in Ahmedabad, many people have stopped using their cars, specifically students and workers who are working in factories. If you take a BRTS route, you will hardly take 20 minutes to reach from one place to other place. If you take your own car or any other mode of transport, it will be costlier also and not comfortable also. Ahmedabad BRTS is AC buses, they are playing from one place to another place. So mobility solution for India is definitely demanding solution. And the way data rate is dropped during last decade, and the usage started, application started, same thing is going to happen for a energy sector also. The last tender in India for a solar energy was costing 2.1 rupees only. So solar energy rates are going to be dropped, and then battery technology also improving and research is happening. So whatever solution you have described probably is most suitable for the congested city of the India. And it has other advantages also. You said GDP will boost up by 2%, and again job creation is possible, but lot of technology integration also has to happen. Is a futuristic technology, but definitely viable to be adopted in India. And definitely once government takes decision, definitely there will be big push and things will happen. So it was a very inspiring talk. What are the technology for the future? Definitely drone technology is playing in India for delivery also, and maybe for passenger travel also same thing will happen. But compared to that technology, this permanent structure is more useful, and it will be cost effective also in a long run. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation, sparing your valuable time, and providing a insight about what is successful in Western countries. Probably tomorrow, Indian people also will enjoy the fruit of the technology, and it has multiple advantages. Thank you very much again for sparing valuable time and honoring our invitation. Thank you very much, Ranbir sir.
Thank you so much, Professor Saab, for having me. It was a pleasure. It was an extreme pleasure to talk to your students and your faculty and to other audiences. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ranbir sir. And this is for all the audiences. This is what we have been doing for the last 2 months. The professors at Vivekananda Global University, the senior members of the team have been doing a hardcore research and bringing in all the trying in all the permutation and combination to get experts, the future drivers of the technology, the future drivers of the innovation, like Mr. Ranbir Saran Das, on screen, just with the purpose that our students be enlightened and our future ready to combat the crisis ahead. Thank you so much, Ranbir sir, for joining us. What a pleasure was it for everyone in the audiences to be a part of such futuristic conversation. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining, sir. Thank you. And to all the viewers out there, stay tuned 21st as we celebrate the International Yoga Day. Couple of events lined up, from the live yoga sessions to a panel discussion to follow. Stay tuned on the virtual learning platform of Vivekananda Global University 21st as we celebrate the International Yoga Day. Signing off for the day. Thank you for tuning in.